Hello and welcome to another episode of Your Space with your host Hannah Arenito. We are here excited to give young people a platform to express their thoughts and to express their views on the fight against corruption in the country. And today's episode is quite special. We do have fantastic guests that I'm going to allow them to introduce themselves. I'll start with the lady at the extreme end, the other side. Hello, welcome to the show, and who are we speaking to?
Thank you, Hannah. My name is Praise Aloikino Poloje. I'm a student of the law at Makerere University, and I am currently interning at the Human Rights and Peace Center. I also work as a media associate for Open Pali UG, where we try to disseminate information from the parliament to the youth in a way that they can understand and relate with. I'm passionate about SRHR, that is sexual reproductive health rights, and a media associate for Donor Initiative that looks at that. I'm so excited to be here and talk about corruption. I'm a mother.
Oh, thank you so much for honoring our invite. Hello. Who are we speaking to and how has your week been?
The week has been good. Thank you all for watching. My name is Maseruka Robert, the Guild President of the Mighty Hill of Endless Opportunities, and that is Makerere University. Wow. I'm a student of Journalism and Communication, and I'm in my 4th year.
Yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome to the show. Hello, Doctor. How has your week been and welcome to the show?
My week has been splendid, Hannah. Thank you for having me. Good evening, viewers. I am Patricia Achano Kiria, Deputy Inspector General of Government. I am happy to be here with my OBs of Makerere University, and I'm happy to be part of this conversation as well. Thank you.
You're going to force me to say Makerere, oh yeah? I think this is a one-sided show. So today's topic is going to be can the eradication of corruption lead as a unifying factor in this country? And maybe I'll start with finding out where each one on this panel comes from, because this topic not only looks at just the fight against corruption, but even the fact that maybe we come from different social, cultural, economic backgrounds. I personally come from Untungamo, Kajara. I don't know if anybody here has been there before. Hasn't anyone been to Untungamo? Doctor, you normally travel?
Yes.
Yes. So that's where I come from. Where do you come from, Praise?
Oh, I come from Palisa in the east.
Ah,
yes.
Okay. How about Mr. President? Where do you come from?
Mukono South.
Mukono South?
Yes.
Okay. Dr. Patricia?
I come from Omoro district.
Perfect. So in what ways does corruption affect different communities? For example, in your community, Mr. President, yes, how has corruption affected your personal community?
Basically, I think when you're talking about corruption, we should be basically talking about the dishonesty that comes with how we handle resources that are meant to be for the public, and then someone uses them originally for their own interest. And I think part of the example I would give is the recent resources that we got from the government through Emioga. Yes. Literally, when we check about how these resources have impacted, you see, when we are talking about Emioga and these other services that government is trying to give, they're yes, majorly to try and increase and develop over 1,000 households. Like the statement is always mentioned in how it was made. However, years in and out, these resources have been provided, but we don't see households developing. It means there is an extent to which these services do not reach those that it's supposed to serve, because probably within the process someone thinks this money is supposed to serve them. The dishonesty that comes is through I think people being so selfish to one extent that these resources shouldn't reach those that it's supposed to serve, but rather go through them and first benefit them first. When you look at, and I think also this works from the different households where we come from. You see, we majorly get this corruption bit of the issue, and then we put it into the, send it to the people in power,
yes,
that they are going wrong and they're being bad. But I want to tell you that corruption is majorly in this country simply because we have people in the country. The moment we wake up one day and we don't have anyone in this country, there won't be corruption.
Are you saying that this is just natural, like it naturally comes to us? Is that what you're trying to say?
I'm saying whatever we call corruption is because people are there and full of dishonesty. For example, you have a home. I'm lucky someone has said here they are a mother. You are in a home, father, mother, and then the daughter. And probably the dad gives mom money to pay for school fees. The bursar tells the mom that the school fees for this term is 200,000. Yes? The daughter tells, probably the bursar tells the daughter, the daughter tells the mother it is 250. The mother tells the father is 350. When we are talking about corruption, it majorly comes with the dishonesty of people. To one extent that even in our own families, you are going to find that now the father is blaming the government of it being corrupt and so on, how they have heightened prices, and how we are being victims for what the government is doing. But, I mean, this is your woman. The woman has increased the school fees from 200 to 350. And then we are blaming the government. I think at the end of the day, we also need to look at, from our side, the part that we need to play besides blaming the government, because even without the government, still corruption will remain. If we ever come up and President Museveni, God forbid, says, I'm done with this power thing, and I've left it to you, the people, now to govern yourselves, 2-3 days or after a week, it doesn't mean that now corruption will have ended. It's like saying, probably when we kill Satan now, there will be no sin.
No sin.
So I think it gets back to the humans at large, where we don't use these public resources for our own interest. We don't use them for those around us, doing that favorism and nepotism. I think as a country, we also be unified as a whole. Why? Because we can trust the system through which we are in. The laws that we have that are fighting corruption currently are just provided for. The Constitution does not guarantee. When you report someone to courts of law about any corruption case, the Constitution just provides for it. It doesn't guarantee that these people will be taken anywhere and face courts of law. But we need to have punishments that are going to that will be at the end of the day at the mind of these people that are trying to carry out all these activities that are corruption, so that they understand that if when I do this, come what may, this is the punishment that I'm going to receive at the end of the day.
I think maybe that question will come to Dr. Patricia in just a second. But Praise, in what ways does corruption affect your community where you come from?
Okay. So you see, Hannah, where I come from, what corruption has done is that it has robbed people of their basic human decency. You understand? It has taken away from their rights. What people from Palisa ask for when they speak of corruption is not maybe this beautiful road. To them, that's not even what matters. We are speaking things like health rights, you know, where a woman goes to hospital to give birth and she's waiting on this line for other 3 women to give birth. My own personal experience, because I gave birth from home. After I had given birth to my daughter, I had to remain on the bed and lay there for almost an hour just waiting for these stitch wires to be brought because they were not in hospital, you understand. So you see people die, you see children die because they don't have oxygen, you understand. Because why don't they have the oxygen? You're asking the nurse and the nurse is saying, but we put in a requisition for that oxygen. They say we received it, but we don't see it, you understand? So that's what corruption has done. If you look at the education systems that actually exist within Palisa, it's really heartening. That's why, disheartening. That's why at the end of the day, I do not now find it surprising that you see girls the age of 16, 15 drop out of school to get married, you understand? Because the kind of education that's being offered to them is as good as no education to them, you understand? So it has robbed people of what could be called their basic human rights, you know? And turned them into survivors. That's why when the government tries to put up things like education for them, the education they'll find there is so bad that it does not actually interest them to remain there, and they go to form families at early ages. So when we speak of corruption and how it has affected people where I come from, it's really a sad story, you know. We have leaders in my district where I come from that you never see except during the times of campaigns, you know. And when they come, if you see even what they use to bribe people to give them the votes, it's 1,000 Ugandan shillings, plastic cups and Bensons. But it's because the services that would have provided for these basic necessities of people no longer exist. The systems are so broken that the price of people's integrity is so cheap, you understand? 1,000 Ugandan shillings can get someone to vote a very bad leader back into power, because what they're looking at is a meal a day for them. What is this money going to do? Is it going to be able to provide this one meal for my daughter? Most of the ladies where I come from in Palisa get money from a system called border. We call it border. So border is where you go and dig for someone in their garden for a given period of time. So when you dig for 2 hours, that's 2,000 Ugandan shillings. You understand? So it's done mostly by the ladies. Most of the men where I come from go to drinking joints in the morning. They don't really care. Women carry the burden of, you know, raising families and everything. And because the family is now looking at a woman alone raising a family, it means even the financial burden is heavy on them. But remember, we have different government initiatives that try to come and solve some problems, you know. But because of corruption, those programs can't even work. Look at the parish development model, look at Yoga. They have been there continuously, endlessly. But they have failed. Why? Because of corruption. Currently, we have this parish development model system where the government seeks to, you know, help people break out of this poverty, you know, barrier and cycle. But I know of people within that system who are still asking these poor people for money to get this money. You understand? So you're asking someone who completely doesn't have a meal a day to give you money, to give them this little money, you know. And even when this money comes, because systems are already so broken, instead of this money doing what it was meant to do, people are going to be forced to cater for their urgent needs, food, medical care for their children, for their families at the end of the day. So it has perpetuated the cycle of poverty. It has dehumanized human beings. Corruption is really bad, the effects where I come from.
Out of all the episodes we've had on your space, this is the first time we've ever had corruption being described as robbing of humans, of basic human rights. Dr. Patricia, do you agree? How does this conversation make you feel? I feel like this is the very first time we've had this, you know, this different perspective.
This is a very, very touchy conversation here today, unpacking the effects of corruption on the community out there. And indeed, corruption affects the community in different ways negatively. And the examples Praise has given coming from Palisa are real live examples. Well, the people of Palisa, government has done a very, very good road stretching from Tirinye to Palisa up to Kumi. And the road would be able to facilitate the people to bring their commodities to the market and ease transportation of goods and services. But the effects of corruption on the government programs is where I am picking interest on. Because you find that government wishes people well, has got these good intentions of improving people's standard of living, of improving socioeconomic needs for the people, providing education. But you find that there are a few people out there who are grabbing what is intended for the people and therefore messing up the image of the government. For instance, the Inspectorate of Government did the cost of corruption study in this country and realized that we lose a lot of money, close to 10 trillion annually, to corruption. Why? Because there are people who are paid salary who are not going to classroom to teach. There are people who are in hospitals who are stealing away the drugs and taking to their private clinics, and that is probably why you find that Praise had to go through that experience without the stitch requirements or necessity or supplies. People are stealing those supplies, and that's the reason why in the Inspectorate of Government we have come up with new innovative methods of fighting corruption, we now do on-spot checks. But Hannah, I can tell you we cannot do on-spot checks to the thousands of the health centers we have in this country. It's just ad hoc, once in a while. Like now, a few weeks I'll be in Chegegwa. While I'm there, I will be able to do some on-spot checks and see what is happening down on ground. It is quite appalling when you look at systems, and now we're even bringing up the systemic approach, where you find that in civil service, recently we're engaging with the permanent secretaries, under-secretaries, middle-level managers in government, and getting feedback from them in respect to the fight against corruption. It is the reason why we have the transparency, accountability, and anti-corruption strategy, because we want to ensure that each ministry, department, and agency has within itself its own internal mechanisms of dealing with corruption and ensuring that there is transparency, accountability, and anti-corruption, their own strategy internally. Because the kind of cases we are receiving today are appalling. It is a clear sign that there is degeneration of values. We need to talk more about integrity. We need to talk more about truthfulness. We need to talk more about these values, because the values are the core of ethical leadership out there. So if we are to fight this corruption, I think we need a holistic approach where everybody contributes. Those kind of examples Praise has shared, if we can be tipped, then we swing into action and get the people who are culpable.
Okay, let's take a mini break. We'll be right back in just a second. Welcome back from that mini break. You're still here on Your Space with your host, Hannah Ari Nitwe. We are still looking at if corruption can be eradicated, regardless of the fact that we all come from different socioeconomic, cultural backgrounds and all that. I've realized that through this conversation we've had, it is evident that corruption has created some sort of divisions among people, right? So do you think that if, Robert, this goes to you, do you think that if we look towards fighting corruption, we can really create a more unified Uganda?
Well, I think for all the times corruption has been around, we have been fighting it. And yet even after that, I've not seen a unified Uganda. We are at a time where there is this tribalism that have come into our country. That those in power, because they're from the West, and so it is termed that those from the West are corrupt. And those from Central and Eastern think if we are to fight corruption now, those are the people that we are supposed to fight. I think corruption of itself has only brought differences and made them so big to one extent that people are fighting each other now, not basically because of corruption, but over tribal issues, because they think those in power, because they are from the West, they are the ones that are encouraging corruption to happen, to be in the country. So as a person, I think it should, what should be uniting us all as one is the awareness that we need to give to people about the effects of corruption. We become our brother's keepers.
Yes.
When we educate the generation now that these are the effects of corruption, this is what it does, we get unified intellectually. It is a mindset change that we need to change if we are to be united all together, because the effects should be brought in a format that it affects all of us. When corruption is affecting, it goes west, south, east, north, central, and so on. So it should be with a mindset change that when corruption happens, we are all going to be affected. No one benefits. You might be benefiting now through corruption, but years after, or even your children won't be beneficiaries of these nitty-gritties that you left at the back before you left them in this life. So I think it should be about mindset change, educating them. We can't be our brother's keepers. And above all, let the laws that are in place. You see, the reason as to why laws are there is actually to unify us. Yes. That I have somewhere to run to when things go wrong. And if we all have this right for all of us to take a case to court and report these cases, and at the end of the day we are protected as individuals, I think it will also help much, rather than getting someone into corruption. Court provides that this is their punishment. I report a case to court, and then I become the bad person, because it is usually brought into a phrase, and we live. So if we get to that extent, I think it leaves us divided, because corruption is the #1 indicator that we are so selfish. And of course, being selfish does not allow us to associate with others. We think everything is supposed to be ours. So with the eradication of corruption, I think, #1, it needs to start with awareness of people. And now, after working towards it, we shall be unified. It is natural that when we are not selfish, others will find our environment so comfortable to live in.
Maybe let me take that to Praise. Do you think that we can ever get to a level in this country where fighting corruption is like a national goal?
Yes, I think that's very achievable. We can get to a point where everyone feels concerned about corruption together.
Do you think people are concerned right now? Do you think people...
I was getting to that shortly. Do I feel people are concerned about corruption? Yes, people are concerned about corruption. However, they are not concerned enough to take action against corruption. And you know why? There are so many different reasons. One, people benefit from the corruption. That's one. But also secondly, like I said, the price of people is so low that they are willing to engage in acts of corruption. The rich can easily bribe the poor. The poor are so desperate to get anything at a very, low cost. So that's why, yes, they are concerned. They feel the pinch of it, but they are not concerned enough to take action. So how can we get them to a point where they are concerned enough to take action?
Dr. Patricia, what specific measures or policies do you think can be implemented in the fight against corruption with inclusivity in mind?
We have got the Constitution and all the other anti-corruption laws, but we also have the policy on zero tolerance to corruption and the national anti-corruption strategy. And these are policies which can be unpacked and implemented in all ministries, departments and agencies. And we have got the TAC, the Strengthening Transparency, Accountability and Anti-Corruption Strategy, which basically would involve everybody. Like under TAC, we are actually involving communities, in especially the refugee hosting communities, where we have community monitoring groups who come out and raise red flags and report cases to us for our actions. We have trained them to know what corruption is. We have equipped them with the information. We have given them what it takes to detect a case of corruption. And they are monitoring districts. They're checking out what projects we have on the ground under Dr. Deep, under USMID, under SAF, and so on and so forth. That is inclusivity. We are involving everybody in the fight against corruption. And like we said, this war against corruption is everybody's war. And we want everybody to be involved. And that is the reason why we have stretched out even to institutions of learning, like Makerere University. We launched a book on the role of the youth, the young people in fighting corruption. And that is also under the TAC strategy. We are involving ourselves in dialogues like this under your space to unpack the national values, because we realize that degeneration of values has impact in the fight against corruption, because the people who commit crime like corruption are people who have lost it all and do not have values and principles they stand for. Yes.
Do you think that even with TAC and Dr. Deep on ground, do you think that people would be really willing to join the fight if their pockets are bleeding?
We have people who have volunteered to come to join the war without anything. Last year, I recovered 1.2 billion, which was being stolen by someone from a project account. He was siphoning this money from Centenary and putting it into his own account. A whistleblower brought it to our attention, and we're able to swing into action and have this person arrested, and we're able to recover this money and plow it back. The whistleblower did not even come back that, you know, I'm the whistleblower, please pay me. For him, it was service beyond self. He was serving the country. So we encourage citizens out there to report such cases, because when you keep quiet and you're buried into lamentation, a lot goes wrong. We are now beyond lamentation. We need to rise up and act and talk about these values, talk about being ethical, talk about these policies, disseminate the laws. Well, I said we have very good laws, we have very good policies, but when they are not disseminated, then we don't have significant impact. What the Inspectorate of Government is trying to do is to equip people with information, disseminating these laws, these policies, enabling the people to be able to demand for accountability from an informed perspective. Because if we are saying we are strengthening transparency, accountability, and anti-corruption, then the citizen out there should be able to know what corruption is and how they can strategize to join the war against corruption. And when you go for war, you have to know the enemy. You have to strategize and be able to attack. So corruption changes its forms like an amoeba. We need to come up with new innovative mechanisms and ways and strategize on how to deal with it. And one of those ways is by using the youth, because the young people are the majority. If we preach integrity, if we preach national values, if we preach these principles, then we stick to them, we will be able to cause the mindset change, especially among the young people. Yes.
Allow me to say bye-bye to you. Thank you so much for joining us on this episode of Your Space with your host, Hannah Arinach. I'm going to say, regardless of where you come from or what you're going through, take part in the fight against corruption, because it will affect you one way or the other. Other than that, have a lovely week. Bye-bye.